Hello, good afternoon. I'm Dave Allen. This is Pompey Pop. I'm sorry to tell you that it's the last one of the Pompey Pop shows, but it's been real fun all year, and you can keep checking them out on the archive anyway. And very pleased this afternoon that my guest is somebody that I've known for a good while, playing around Portsmouth and playing much of the kind of music that I love too. And his name's Andy Broad, and we shall be hearing lots from Andy in just a moment. But I'm going to set a kind of context for Andy, the Portsmouth blues singer of the moment, really, which is to go back in history a little bit. And some of you know that I'm quite fond of the history of Portsmouth music in the 50s and 60s. And I'm going to start by giving a plug to a book that I'm about to publish with my good friend Mick Cooper. I think we've probably got a visual of that to show you, the cover of that. The book is entitled, there it is, the book is entitled Pompey Pop Picks, and you can see on there, among the things that it shows, is a club that used to feature all the great rhythm and blues bands of the early 60s, and there are one or two mentions of other R&B and blues acts and so on and so on. So that'll be out in mid-November, and you can get it in local shops, and you can get it by checking out the Pompey Pop website and blog and so on and so on. Okay, and among the things in it, well, I just picked this up. I'm rather fond of this. This is an EP cover of Chris Barber and Ottilie Patterson, who were, I guess, in a way, the first of the kind of key British blues acts. They were bringing over people like Muddy Waters and Big Bill Brunsey in the 50s, and would be playing pretty regularly on South Parade Pier. Well, that visual isn't actually in the book, but here are three rather lovely things that you will find in the book, and things that I'm pretty fond of. I think you can see that. There we are. This is a Guildhall flyer, Guildhall, Portsmouth. The legendary Josh White, one of the first men to record House of the Rising Sun. The Reverend Gary Davis, who played blues and ragtime, blind performer. And the native Indian lady, Buffy St. Marie, was on the bill as well. That was the first time I ever went to see a live gig featuring real live blues singers. And that's one of the images that you'll find in the book. That's a Guildhall gig that happened in 1965. Now, this is a pretty old and somewhat faded image, but I think you can just about make out there that man on acoustic guitar and vocals with a pretty crude microphone. I don't know what kind of PA they were using, really. That's Long John Baldry, and he's there playing acoustic folk blues at the Railway Hotel back of Fratton Station, less than half a mile from where we're sitting doing this studio performance. And then the last picture that I'm going to show you, just to whet your appetite from the book, this was from a club called the Rendezvous Club up at the Oddfellows Hall in North End, and there was a night, Christmas 1964, when Emmett Hennessy, who's there with the ticket round his neck, Emmett Hennessy performed as a folk blues player. So again, the folk blues tradition in Portsmouth pretty strong in the early 60s, and the Hoochie Coochie Men turned up. And Long John Baldry wasn't there for some reason that night, but that man next to Emmett Hennessy there was Rod Stewart. Of course, you'll recognise Rod Stewart, and he sang one of his first live gigs in Pompey. So that's to set up a kind of historic blues context, if you like, for the city. There's always been a strong folk blues, rhythm and blues tradition. And my guest for this afternoon, and I'm going to shut up now and let him play and talk as much as possible. My guest for this afternoon, over the past quarter of a century, I guess, has been just about the key consistent blues performer around Portsmouth. Just to repeat, his name's Andy Broad, and we'll talk about some of the gigs he does and some of the performance he does in a moment. But for 25 years he's been playing around the city since he arrived here, initially out of university to take on a job. But he decided to be a blues singer instead, and I'm very pleased he is. So welcome, Andy. Tell us what you're going to play first up, and then play us a song.
I'm going to play a song called Postcard Blues, which is one that I wrote way back, 1995, something like that. One of the first ones put out on tape in those old days when we had tapes.
When we had them, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I got a postcard this morning. Has said my baby, she just left this town. Now I got a postcard this morning. Well, said my baby, she left this town. She never gave no address there. Well, you know, she said she was Texas bound. Well, bluebird, bluebird, now can you take my letter for me? Now, bluebird, bluebird, hey, can you take my letter for me? Well, I ain't got no address there. Maybe you can find my little girl for me. Well, baby, please come on home. Oh, you know it's quiet round here since you're gone. Now, baby, please come on home. Well, you know it's quiet round here since you're gone. Well, I'll never meant to lose you, baby. What in the world now did I do wrong? I said, now, baby, please, baby, please, baby, please, won't you come on home? Baby, please come on home. Oh, you know it's quiet round here since you gone. But I never meant to lose you, baby. What in the world now did I do wrong?
Lovely, thank you very much. I'm very envious. It's the one skill in the world that I've never mastered, really, to be all over that fretboard playing like that. Can you tell us something about that particular style? Because I know that through the years that you've been learning to play the blues, that you've listened to a lot of recordings of blues. So where would you place that particular style that you played then in terms of influence?
That's very much inspired by Lightning Hopkins.
Lightning Hopkins.
Yeah, early Texas blues.
Yeah.
None of this Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff that people think is Texas blues these days.
Yeah.
Great as Stevie Ray Vaughan is, there's a whole wealth of stuff that happened before that, which is very different. And I think I picked up a Lightning Hopkins album on vinyl. It would have been probably 1987, something like that. It would have been before I had this guitar, actually, so probably talking about 1985, when I had this an old Kalamazoo guitar which I bought from Strings, and it's just this ancient 1936 guitar. I thought, I want to play the blues, I've got to have a guitar that old.
And Strings was in Elm Grove, wasn't it?
Elm Grove, yeah. And I remember sitting at home in Farnborough, where visiting my mum, play the album 4 times, and so she's starting to get a bit fed up, and I picked up my guitar. And it's a really lovely comment that in my mind that still sticks is, you're not playing that album again, are you? And it was me playing.
And it was you playing.
So
how lovely.
That was like, whoa. But that's how I learned, though. By playing along to albums, listening to them, pick it up, play it again and again and again, kind of thing.
And over those years, have there been particular favourites that you've played along with that have been I mean, was Lightning Hopkins one of those? Were there others that were big influences?
Lightning Hopkins is one of my favourites. A lot of Robert Johnson, obviously.
So that's Mississippi. So we're now geographically we're moving from Texas to Mississippi.
Absolutely. Muddy Waters.
Mississippi again, and then Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like both ends of the Muddy Water spectrum as well. I like the more.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't know whether people will know about both ends of the spectrum. By that you really mean that, because we were talking earlier about by the end of his career, he's with one of the big rock figures. Johnny Winter is his producer, and he's got a full-on band, you know, and it's much louder stuff.
It is, yeah. That's the stuff that first got me into the blues. Actually, I bought a tape of a compilation made just after Muddy Waters died, and so that would have been 1983, 4, something like that, when I was at university, and. That's really powerful music, and then from there I bought some of the chess stuff much earlier.
50s,
and even 40s, some of it, and it was much simpler sound, but still with that groove. And even that goes through a phase. At the end of it is a lot more bandy, and the early stuff is very simple guitar stuff.
That's right.
Quite spaced out music, really.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that Muddy Waters played a lot was slide guitar.
Yeah.
You have a slide, don't you?
I do, yeah. I'm going to do one. In fact, I'm going to do a Muddy Waters style one in a minute, actually.
Are you going to do one?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is a bit earlier than we were planning, maybe, but since we're talking about it, we could do that now if you like.
Yeah, sure.
Why not?
Yeah.
Let's do it. And tell us a little bit about what, you know. This was often called bottleneck guitar because they used to literally break the glass bottleneck off a bottle and then heat it up so that it didn't cut you, and then play with that. But you use a metal.
I use a brass slide because it fits my hand. I used to have a glass one, which fit perfectly on that knuckle, but they break, and I lost it. So I've gone back to using this one again.
And just as a matter of interest, are you doing anything? I mean, you're using the same tuning that you'd used just now.
Yeah.
Is this straight tuning that you're using?
Yeah,
here?
I use standard tuning. It's a bit unusual for slide playing, but I've always used the standard tuning. Okay. One of the things I hate at gigs is guitarists going boing, boing, and so, and I've never got around to. So I've developed my own reinterpretation of the technique. And and this one's this Muddy Waters style, but it's my own song, and it was the title track of my first CD, which I made in 1999, which From the Roots On Down.
Right.
Well, from the roots now, baby, from the roots on down. I said from the roots, honey, from the roots on down. Well, my feeling, baby, all come from way, way down. Well, in the winter, baby, leaves turn brown. Kind of spring out, honey, just there, green all around. I sip from the roots, honey, from the roots on down. Well, my feeling, baby, all come from way, way down. Need some shelter, honey, come beneath my spread. Need a little loving now, take down, leave for your bed. I sip from the roots, honey, from the roots on down. Well, my feeding, baby, all come from way, way down. Wind is blowing, honey, hot and cold. My roots they're deep now, you know that they will hold. I sip from the roots, honey, from the roots on down. Well, my feeding, baby, all come from way, way down. Yeah, the roots now, baby, from the roots on down. I said from the roots, honey, from the roots on down. Well, my feeling, baby, oh yeah, come from way, way down.
Now, one of the beautifully subtle things about that I think you can hear in somebody like Robert Johnson is that there are moments where it seems as if the pace is going to pick up, and then it drops back into that 4. You know, there is a 4/4 rhythm there, but that's a real subtlety, isn't it?
Yeah, there's blues, especially the country blues, is quite complex rhythmically, and a lot of it does speed up actually, especially when I'm playing it. But and there's, I mean, another Muddy Waters classic, I'll Be Satisfied.
Yeah.
There's a beat missing in that, and it's supposed to be missing. It's not a mistake. It follows the way the vocal line works, and a number of people will put that beat back in without really realising and wondering why it doesn't sound quite right. And it's a lot of complex things that go on with these things.
And I guess we would both think that the trick is that you just got to listen to it, and the real stuff. You've got to listen to it and listen to it.
You have to listen to a lot of it.
Yeah.
And
now, the question that leads me to, though, is how difficult it is to be a modern day white British blues performer, because you're not necessarily, you're playing to audiences that listen to an enormous amount of music, more music than anybody's ever listened to before in history.
Absolutely, yeah.
And yet they may not actually be too, it's like, oh, here's another blues band.
A lot of people have a misconception of a blues band based on pub rock, I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pub rock bands that are good in their own right, but they play a very simplified version of the blues, and it possibly based around old Rolling Stones songs, which are
quite possibly
good enough in their way, but there's a whole range of blues, and it's not all sad stuff either. There's especially the swing.
I've always said, Andy, that one of the things about the blues that I've loved all my life is how uplifting it is.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're doing, at the worst, what you're doing is getting the misery out of you.
Absolutely,
But at its best, it's great fun. It's often quite humorous.
I mean, the Chicago stuff, the swing stuff from Texas, it's all very upbeat stuff, dancing music. They let their hair down at the end of the night with a jug of moonshine and in a juke joint somewhere.
Yeah.
And,
but what about the kind of gigs you do? Let's talk about. I mean, you've just come back from France, so you've just done a mini tour of France, and that was playing a little bit like you've played for us this evening.
More or less, yeah. When I'm playing in a proper gig, so to speak, I have a wooden stomp box which I arranged so I thump out a bit of a drum beat.
Makes a bit of that kind of noise.
That's it, yeah. And then I play amplified, obviously, and I do a set with the electric as well, but still solo blues, the same kind of stuff.
Yes. I mean, you played at a wedding. Now, normally at weddings, people want to, dance to Whitney Houston Romance or something.
Yeah, the middle gig of the tour was a wedding, but the guy was a blues fan, and a lot of his friends were blues fans. Okay. And the comments from the non-blues fans that they liked having something different.
Great.
Because it wasn't all mournful stuff. It was a bit, and I did some jazz as well. I blended in a little bit of jazz instrumentals, so it was a good mixture.
Now you have all kinds of acts, don't you? You have about 5 or 6 acts that you
I've got.
With. Let's go through them all.
I've got 6 main acts at the moment. The solo, obviously, is doing the solo blues stuff, and occasionally a solo jazz set.
Yeah. What kind of stuff is that? Is that guitar jazz? You mean? Like
yeah,
go on, play us a little bit. You don't have to play a whole song.
That kind of thing, and a little bit of Django stuff maybe.
Now, I've seen you in a local restaurant doing that. Is that mainly that kind of gig?
Yeah, I do a few of those.
Like background stuff.
Yeah. There's a quartet I play in, and now it also does some similar kind of stuff with Chris Shaw on the sax. Yeah. And then I played with Chris in a blues duo, which we taken on the name Blue Graffiti from our first CD, which wasn't originally our name of the band, but it sounded good. Then Chris also has joined up with Burnt Ice, which is my long-running blues band. Yes. which has been playing.
And how would you describe that sound? That's got bass guitar and drums in it.
Yeah, that's a much more funky style of
Right.
blues. It's draws in funk, soul edges.
So that would be, say, Albert King,
Albert
the Stax
King's,
influence,
yeah,
going towards
and
soul
then
music?
going into the Alligator stuff with like Albert
Yeah.
Collins, which
Yeah.
is where the name kind of comes from,
Yeah.
really. James Cotton,
Yeah.
that kind of feel.
Yeah.
And then I've got the West Side Blues Band,
Huh.
which is a more, well, based on the sound of the West Side
Yeah.
of Chicago,
Yeah.
which is like Otis Rush,
Yeah.
Buddy Guy,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Now you demonstrated a little bit of that playing earlier, and because I threw out. This sounded like I knew what I was talking about, Andy, but I threw out at you the idea that there were more minor chords in those kind of blues.
Yeah.
And you showed me something there. Could you
Well,
show
yeah.
us that again? That
Yeah,
difference
sure, yeah.
with what you've just done. I guess you could say in a way that that's sort of bridging that gap between the Mississippi blues style and the jazz stuff that you do, isn't it?
It is a little bit, yeah.
got that kind
There's a little bit of that kind of thing in there, I guess, and I do draw jazz into my blues,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
and a little bit of world music influence these days as well. A little kind of, I like listening to Ali Fakatore,
Ah,
great
African, yeah.
player, and there's a definite similarity going on there between that Malian music and
Yes.
the blues, and I draw some of that in a couple of songs I've had, drawing the Moroccan influence as well.
I suppose one of the great pleasures, I have at home a book by Sam Charters, who was a writer and producer of blues in the late 50s, early 60s, and there's a book called The Country Blues, and he writes about blues records that are available in about 1959 or 60. And in this particular version, there's a British version, and he has a chapter about what you could go buy if you went to Charing Cross Road in London, what you could buy in 1959 or 60. And there's about 8 albums, and that's it. You know, if you're really lucky, you can find 8 albums of blues. Whereas nowadays, you know, you can go on
tons of it, yeah.
iTunes and you can hear anything, can't you?
Yeah,
and
you can, yeah. Before we run out of time, actually, I've got to mention my most recent project, which is Walk Abroad.
Right.
With, Sandy Walker on vocals,
Yeah.
which is a whole blend of songwriting stuff. And
you write together?
Yeah, we've been writing for about a year and a half. We've got 15. We're ready to make our next album now.
Right.
And musically, the best way to describe it is we sound, the few covers we do are like from Sandy Denny, Pentangle.
So
and
more
then,
English sound.
but also with Bonnie Raitt.
Okay.
So we really blend my blues and jazz in with Sandy's folk and jazz, and Sandy plays piano. And Sandy was going to come along.
Yeah,
today,
we'd hope to have her,
but-
didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, but it went a different way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's something to look out for. And that's got its own dedicated website, which is www.walkabroad.co.uk.
Right.
And my own website, I might as well mention that, is
do.
www.broad.ology.org.uk.
broad.ology.org.uk. Right. And Andy's always sending out emails with gigs, and you're just working a lot, aren't you?
Well, I'm a full-time musician, so you've got to work a lot
Yes.
because nobody pays you enough.
No, no. And of course, you used to be famous for busking locally as well. I used to call you the Portsmouth's Maxwell Street Jimmy, which is a bit of an esoteric reference to a famous Chicago busker. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of that.
Yes.
Not so much now. I do go out every now and again when when I have a week that's a bit dry, or when I'm just feeling a bit twitchy indoors.
Yeah.
It's a good way of getting out there and playing a little bit.
But you are a real working musician in a period of popular music when actually there isn't so much of it in a way. You know, I mean, the bigger bands do huge tours, but then they have 2 years off or something, and then do another thing. But you're a real working musician. I mean, you're doing 3 gigs a week, maybe on average, something like that.
3 gigs this last weekend, and then 3 gigs down in France. Yeah, and you get the odd week was a bit quiet. I've actually got a little gap now, of a couple of weeks, which is good because I recorded a lot of the stuff I did in France. And I've just spent the last few days mixing out the first 2 sessions. Right. And I'm planning to make a live in France CD. I've already got more than enough stuff to make the CD. I just want to, so I've got the option now of picking the best tracks. Yeah. And I'm thinking about adding a bonus batch of MP3s when you buy the CD, because it's so hard for me to decide what to put on CD or not. We'll take the lazy option and give you everything kind of thing.
And I mean, do you imagine that, you know, as you say, you came to Portsmouth with a degree and a fairly prestigious job in engineering, etc., and you've given all that up, and you know, which is much more courageous than I ever was. I did the opposite, really. But I mean,
well, it was kind of doing my head in. You know, I was never really. Even when I was halfway through university, I started learning the guitar. I knew then what I wanted to do was play guitar, but I hadn't done enough of it to be able to do. And it's not a decision I've ever regretted. No. Although cash flow has been somewhat different. Yeah, but,
sure. And you envisage that for the rest of your life, that's the way it's going to be. You're going to be a musician. Yeah. And keep all these projects going. And
absolutely. Yeah.
When I was, I guess, about 17 or something, deeply in love with the blues, the Muddy Waters band, minus Muddy Waters, made a record that was credited to Otis Spann, but it was the whole band. It was called The Blues Never Die, and Otis Spann sang a song on it. People, please don't let the blues die. And Otis is long gone now, but I mean, you're doing more than anybody locally to keep it alive. Is it going to survive, do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because there are a few youngsters around doing it. I've noticed a couple of young bands playing it, and they go for the rockier end of it, but that's the same with, that's just kids, isn't it?
That's okay, yeah.
And there are a few younger bands on the circuits. They keep popping. These young prodigies pop up and make you work hard.
Yes.
But
yes, and an audience for it still.
Yes, there is. Yeah. I think it's important to get the younger players in as well, because they bring the younger audience, and you don't want to go the way of trad jazz.
No. No.
Not to insult trad jazz too much, because my dad plays it, but
it did lose its audience.
The audience is old.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And so you want a younger audience.
No, I agree with that.
Don't.
There we are. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've run out of time, and I'm going to just say goodbye again from Pompey Pop, although Pompey Pop will be around in other manifestations, including the book, which is due out soon, and so on and so on. I'm going to say a very big thank you to Andy for coming in and doing this session, because I'm hugely fond of his music and enjoyed it very much. And Pompey Pop on Portsmouth Live TV is going to wave goodbye to you with Andy playing us out with...
Every Penny of the Deal, this is called.
Thank you.
Well, when I first met you, baby, we had a ball. Next time we met, you said you weren't too shy. I want you to know, hey, my feelings, they're real. And if you go with me, babe, I'll give you every penny of the deal. Well, now you looked at me, baby, filled me with a fire. You're looking away now, what I do with all this desire. I want you to know, hey, my feelings, they're real. And if you go with me, babe, I'll give you every penny of the deal. I can't offer you the world, 'cause I ain't got the world to give. All I can give you, baby, is the way that I live. I want you to know, hey, my feelings, they're real. And if you go with me, babe, I'll give you every penny of the deal. I said go with me, babe, we'll make a real strong team. Stick with me now, make reality from this dream. I want you to know, hey, my feelings, they're real. And if you go with me, babe, I'll give you. I said go with me, babe, I'll give you. I said go with me, babe, I'll give you every penny of the deal.